Hi, welcome to the small shed. This week I'm getting involved in a build that's very much needed for tonight. See you in a minute. Now, about just over 12 months ago, the local church round the corner from Menning Sheds got in touch and said they wanted us to build them a stable for a nativity scene, and could we help them out. And I think at the time it was pretty much the back end of October, and we said, look, you don't know what you want, we don't know what you want, you've got less than a month to do this, how big is it going to be? And they said, oh, we want it quite big. And we talked about it, and quite frankly it was just not practicable for us to do it. So we said, look, come back to us next year, early October. We at least now know that we've got it plugged into the system, if you like, and we will come and see what we can do for you. And so we started to gather a certain amount of pallet wood and things like that and put to one side, and we were very much short for materials until we had a drop-off of these bits of 4x3 timber that's been so useful in lots of jobs that we've done down at the shed, from a firm that gets them, comes in between pipes from Italy, and basically then just gets binned. So we had a delivery of those. We ripped a lot of them down for slats, which I've machined up in a previous video that you've seen, and the rest we've been using as support work for the actual stable itself. Now, this wasn't my original job. I had nothing much to do with this because I've got lots of other things on the go, but as is ever the way with these things, I got sucked into it slowly, and I ended up having to do some of the work with some of the other guys. This is not something I've done. This is a job that's been a team effort of probably 4 or 5 people that have been in and out on different days, and a lot of the work that's been done that you don't see, like painting and, you know, getting all the slats covered in Osmo and stuff like that, to preserve it, because it's got to be outside, is unseen. But that's only because of it's been done when I'm not there at the shed, and B, I don't necessarily like filming lots of folks at the shed that probably don't want to be filmed. So let's have a look and see how this thing started from the delivery we had, as I say, very much early in October, of these bits of 4x3 timber. So these were the timbers that we had, and although it looked a lot to start with, I think we've pretty much used all but about 5. I think we used about 20 lengths of this stuff in the whole build. I started off just cutting some large ones for the perimeter of the floor, and some smaller ones. I cut them down a bit for smaller cross beams and put that all together, and we made a start. I haven't done a lot of video at this point in the project because I wasn't particularly deeply involved with it, but as I say, I did get more and more sucked into it, and it's been pretty simple as a build, really. There's very little work in it. There are 3 cross walls made out of these 4x3 timbers with a little bit of work done on the ends just to shape them up a bit, and they just fit onto the floor. And really that's the main support structure. There's some back panels in to keep them rigid, and the floor itself provides a pretty adequate foundation. So it wasn't as if there was any huge amount of time that I had to spend on it, and a lot of the work was done on the Mondays when I'm down supervising at the shed anyway. I think you can see me here just correcting a cock up in that the overhang was too large at the front, and the side panels wouldn't fit properly between the places they've got to go on the floor, so I had to re-drill those and resort them, but fairly simple. Well, I've had a good morning at the shed today. We're getting on with this thing fairly well. I've got all the bottom frame assembled, ready for them. I think they're coming in tomorrow to put the pallet wood slats on the floor, so that will pretty much finish the base. I've assembled all of the wall trusses that will go onto metal shoes with spikes in them to sit upright, and I'm starting to get an idea on how the roof itself is going to work, because there's a big truss from that apex all the way down here on this side and down on the other side. But other than the back wall, which is the big thing, we're sort of 90% there with all the cutting of everything. There's some side timbers needed on here that they can do and put on. Side timbers to go across here, and they'll need to be removable because this thing's got to almost flat pack. But this back wall is going to be where there's probably I don't know whether there's a shortage of wood or not. We've got some pallet wood left over there. But I think we are starting to get down the pallet wood quite a lot, so we may well need to have a raid out on some pallets. But on the whole, not too bad at all, considering it's sort of mid-October and this is a nativity thing. We are pretty much on target, I think, for getting it ready. I needed to do a bit of trimming on the floor, but by and large all of the slats had been cut, prepared to length and coated in Osmo on both sides, the oil that's pretty good at keeping the weather out. So it wasn't a huge amount of work just to knock those into place into the pre-built frames, which again you can see somebody's painted up in the intervening days, and pop all these in on the floor. We wanted to just remain as pretty much rough timber, pallet wood sort of thing. The only thing that we've really used the planed nice timber for is the roof, because we didn't want any holes where nails had been or anything to allow water to get into the thing. We sealed all the joints up with bitumen and before we nailed the roof together, so hopefully it's reasonably weatherproof, given that there is some overhang but all the sides are open. Got the little work zone nail gun working on the floor, and then I just gave it a top coat of oil once it was all done. So after another day's work today, we've managed to get all the back wall framed up for the stable area. There's just got to have some cross rails put in here, and we've sorted out the height of this so that the slope of the roof comes down evenly, so I can actually get and cut the joists on Monday now when I'm down at the shed. The floor all fits together. It's all been doweled up so that these are held in on effectively on broom handle dowels. So the only real fixing anybody will have to do is we just need to sort out a means of attaching that back wall to the uprights in two places on both of those walls, and it sort of gives the whole thing a rigidity that is all we need really, and we can then just drop the joists on either side with the roofing. I've got to put some pallet wood vertically on the wall at the back. That's all cut and stained up. The roof timbers are all down the end that we were doing in the shed the other day. They've all been stained up. So I think we're pretty close to getting it done. That's the material for the joists as well. So really this has only taken about probably 3 or 4 days for 2 and 3 of us to get to this point. The base is pretty heavy, but it splits in the middle, so there's 2 4-foot panels. But I think we're getting reasonably close to what we should be doing. quite well with the stable. The roof timbers are now pretty much sorted. There's a little bit of fettling to do on some of the joints on the birds' mouths, but they're all pretty much in there ready to start and get that tidied so they can be painted. Got all the heights sorted out for the centre beam, so that's all done. A lot of cutting we can now get on with because we can see where things go. I've put all the back wall in today. That needs a little bit of paint here and there where the pallet wood's inconsistent in depth, but again that was a fairly straightforward job with the just use this little Aldi nailer, which is proving to be rather good. If I see those on offer I might get one. But yeah, we're more or less, apart from cutting timbers down now, we're pretty much ready to start and put the roof together. So the stable's beginning to take shape now. We had a day last Wednesday, I think it was, when we got most of the finishing bits done and a third of the roof done, so we've got to get the next third and the third on the far side of the roof done, and I think we're about there really. I'm not entirely convinced that just putting the slats on the joists will be strong enough, so I might just put a couple of cross members in, probably with like pocket holes or something, just to screw them in to give it that rigidity across, because there's only the thin nails holding it all together. But I don't know, we'll see. And one of the other guys has already built the manger while I've been out, so that's done as well. Looks like a joinery job as opposed to our nailing lumps of wood together job, but I think we're just about complete, and I think the aim is to try and get this ready this week. Another probably half a day I'll see this roof on, and then on Friday they'll come in with the trailer. We can get it loaded up and out of the shed, because at the moment it is causing quite a bit of chaos due to the size. So I think by this time we're into probably only about a month since we started on, and bearing in mind when I say a month, for me that is only 4 Mondays and the occasional, like now it was a Wednesday afternoon after everyone else had gone home. But it hasn't taken that long, because it is relatively simple as a piece of work. But we're just finally putting the last slats onto the roof. These are the ones I did in the shed a long while back with the like half lap joints to keep some of the water out, and we've sealed them up with bitumen on the joints to stop too much water ingress. And then there's just a capping piece that one of the other shedders had made out of oak that goes onto the ridge to keep the weather out. By this time the whole thing was beginning to be a bit of an embarrassment in the shed. It was taking up a huge amount of room, but we really needed it to stay in one place, all put up, so that we could get that roofing finished. And finally the big day has arrived to get this thing moved. It's a bit of work I needed to do. Some of the dowels in the bottom of the cross members hadn't been glued at the time because we hadn't got any Gorilla Glue, so I spent a bit of time before everybody arrived with the transport to just pop them in with a little bit of mixture of super glue to hold it immediately and some Gorilla Glue just to foam up and give us a long-term solution. And then we rolled it up round the corner to the church, and given that we left at 10:15, or no, the guys arrived at 10:15, that's right, with the transport, we had this whole thing put up on site by 11:15, so it was less than an hour really from loading it onto transport to getting the thing finished. I think actually on site, the clip you're watching at the moment of putting it up from foundation to roof, much to our surprise, was 15 minutes. And that's because we hadn't got too many bolts in the system. We got 2 or 3 bolts on each of the roof panels, but you didn't get any distortion from lots and lots of different bolts needing to line up. I think everyone was happy, and it was then time just to get our pictures taken and enjoy the moment. So I hope the video was of interest. Look forward to seeing you next week. We'll be doing something different. All that remains now is for me to wish everybody a very happy Christmas, and we'll see you next week. Bye!